Tak skal du have. Som englænder, som har boet i Danmark i mange år efterhånden, så synes jeg selv, at det går meget fornuftigt med hensyn til at forstå mundtlig dansk og skriftlig dansk. Og jeg synes også, når jeg læser norsk på skærmen, så går det også vældig godt. Men så snart I begynder at åbne jeres mund, så går det helt galt. Og Marit, der fra Skanske, hun advarede mig, at hun havde en meget svær dialekt, og jeg havde meget svært ved at forstå hende. Du havde ret. Jeg havde meget svært ved at forstå. I får den her på engelsk, så jeg håber, det er okay med jer. This is a picture of Jens Birgersen. He's our CEO. He was at a conference with Zero in November last year and received an award for the project that was just mentioned in Moss at our factory, which was a development project to switch coal to electricity. It was the first time that stone wool had been produced using that technology at that volume in the world. So we were incredibly thankful for the collaboration with Enova, and without Enova, it wouldn't have been possible. The focus of this presentation is the link between circularity and decarbonization, because there is an incredibly close linkage. When you look at von der Leyen, the new EU commissioner, she says that 50% of the carbon emission reductions that we need to achieve to get down to the climate neutrality of 2050, 50% needs to come from circularity. And when she says circularity, she means two things: improved material efficiency and strengthened circular business models. So circularity is key. A little bit about us. About Rockwool. So we're the largest producer of stone wool in the world. We have been working with sustainability for, I would say, decades. We did our first life cycle assessment back in the 90s. But I would say it's not until 2015 that we started using sustainability strategically. And we're working with sustainability strategically because we see it as a commercial opportunity. We see there is enormous business opportunity in working with sustainability. Of course, it reduces risk, but we also believe that seriously working with improving the benefits of our products and at the same time minimizing the operational impacts will mean that we'll be able to sell more products. The SDGs, they provide the strategic framework for working with sustainability. We committed to 10 back in 2016. And we work with two dimensions. So there's the upper level, which is the product impact, which we call the handprint. And there's the operational impact, which is the footprint. And it's incredibly important for all companies to work with both dimensions, because what's the point of working with just the operational footprint if the products that you're producing or the services you're providing doesn't have a positive impact to society? Relating to the lower limits there, or the lower dimension, the operational impact, then we have set dedicated sustainability goals. We have goals within decarbonisation, energy efficiency, but also within circularity. And there's two goals, the middle ones there, that relate specifically to circularity. The one, closing the loop at our factories, so reducing waste from our factories globally by 85% by 2030. And the second one, relating to reclaim waste schemes, so actually offering take-back systems so we can take the wool from the market, from the construction sites, from demolition sites, and reuse or recycle it. And I'll come back to that. We think we have a very good starting point, and durability is one of the properties of our material, and I think durability is often something you don't hear so much about when you talk about circularity. But if you have a product that maintains its performance over many, many years, then of course the need for you to bring it back into the loop, to recycle, to reuse, or whatever, which also requires energy, which also requires materials, that is less. So the longer you can keep it out of those circular systems, the better. And we have a material, depending on what material you're talking about, but a material that typically has a lifespan of minimum 55 years. And we've taken some of our material out of some buildings that have lasted 70 years, and they still have precisely the same performance as when we put it in there. So I think that's something that's important, and something not to be underestimated. If we look at recycling, the reclaim waste schemes, so we have a goal to offer reclaim waste schemes in 30 countries by 2030. We're moving in the right direction. So in 2022, the goal is 15, and we're up to 12 by this year. We discussed before we set the goal, should we also set a goal relating to volumes coming back? We decided against it because the challenge that we have is that even though we can offer the schemes, if there are certain barriers within the market that makes it almost impossible for those volumes to come back, then it would be an artificial goal. One of those barriers, for example, relates to landfill prices. So if we take Denmark, for example, in the western part of Denmark, the landfill prices are incredibly low, and therefore it's extremely difficult for us to encourage or persuade contractors like Skanska to use our service, because landfill is perhaps the best option from a cost perspective. In the east of Denmark, landfill prices are quite high, and then it makes sense. We have a similar situation in Germany. If you look at Russia, when you ask our Russian friends what happens to waste, then typically say that it just disappears. So we have challenges, market challenges, and therefore we're really excited by the plans that the EU has, for example, within the Green Deal, a circular action plan, because we can't do this alone. We're dependent on the conducive frameworks to circularity. If we go to Norway, then these statistics are probably very familiar with you. Going to focus on waste there, 25% of waste that is coming from buildings and construction. And of course, if that waste is ending up in landfill, then there are also carbon emissions related to that. But more importantly, as we heard from a previous speaker, that waste is actually also a resource. We shouldn't actually be calling it a waste. We should be calling it a feedstock that isn't being utilized. And of course, if we can utilize that feedstock, that waste, rather than calling it and treating it as waste, then we can also reduce a lot of carbon emissions. We made the decision to choose Norway to decarbonize our facility. We have 45 facilities globally. We have 29 mineral wool factories. So why Norway? I think it was really important for a number of reasons. We've identified 4 there. Clear predictability. Norway is dedicated to a carbon neutral society. There is a market drive for products that are low carbon intensity wise, but also recyclable. Electrification, you have a renewable energy system, and last but not least, you have a fund that is willing to subsidize a company like ourselves with a development technology that we would not have been able to afford on our own. And the exciting thing with this is that because it's a prototype, we can learn a hell of a lot from it, which means that we have a great opportunity to do this in many of our other factories around the world. So circularity and decarbonization go hand in hand. We often use the figure 80% reduction in the Moss factory, CO2, but you shouldn't also forget the 95% figure, which is waste reduction. So the fact that we're able to keep the wool from going to landfill and actually recycle that in the factory and make new products from it, that's also saving a lot of CO2. We're also able to use secondary raw materials, so we upcycle materials, waste products from other industries. Globally, we utilize 600,000 tons of waste materials around the world. We have a recycled content in our products of up to 50%. We're able to do that also in Moss because of this technology. And we have a factory in Trondheim. We're able to transport now the waste that is being generated at Trondheim, which doesn't have the same technology as Moss, and recycle it in our facility in Moss. What we can also see is that there is increasing interest from the market, from our customers, when it comes to recyclable products or products that can be reused. Some companies like Skanska are actually demanding it, and that's why there's a commercial opportunity for us, because at the end of the day, stone wool is inherently recyclable. So there's a commercial opportunity there for us. If we can offer this service in those countries where there is a demand, then we've got a chance of selling more products. So we will continue the journey when it comes to circularity, not only from a sustainability perspective, but also from a commercial perspective. Thank you very much.